This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles film.
This is not the history of New York hardcore.
This film details the New York hardcore scene for what it was,
What it is,
and what it will forever be.
One of the most vital and influential music scenes to ever exist.
Its impact is felt worldwide, and its legacy continues on.
Long after many other cities' hardcore scenes have died off.
New York hardcore is never ending.
Forever and always.
New York hardcore will never die.
Yo, New York hardcore will never die.
New York hardcore will never die.
This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles film.
It's another beautiful day in New York City, Black and Blue Ball, you know, on 11th Street, between 3rd and 4th Avenues. You know, the old Ritz. It's, you know, a place where hardcore and all amazing acts of all genres have played. There's so much history in this room, and people from all over the world are here to enjoy the day's festivities. It's DIY. We don't have any corporate backing. It's just, it's the biggest DIY show probably in the country.
You curse the sky above, hands above, so below, it's new. Surprise you never learned how to float. Don't need any answers yet. What you know now, you will soon forget.
It's just home. It's awesome. I love that people come from other countries, other towns. I don't even live here, and it's great. And I have friends that come from Canada and Australia and Europe, and it's just fucking awesome.
See, the good part is like New York has like an outstanding long tradition in hardcore, and it's still living here. I mean, you can see it. Like, take a look at all these people. I mean, it's like they're loyal. They're loyal to the grave, so that's a great thing. And like I said, I return every year.
We try to make like a percentage to see how many people travel from abroad, and I would say that maybe a fifth would be an accurate number, right? I see a lot of guys from Belgium, you know, from Holland and from Germany that I don't see on a yearly basis, but I'll see them at the ball.
We're Colombian skinheads. We're right here at the Black and Blue Ball, New York City. We're New York hardcore too. We're so excited. Let's go. We're gonna watch Marble.
Here we are on the corner of Avenue A and 7th Street, right here at Thompson Square Park, right across the street, the old A7 Club. This is home. This is truly the real, you know, the real core of the hardcore movement, the hardcore scene. Yeah, we had our great Gildersleeves, we had our CBGBs, we had our Ritzes and all that stuff, but this is where it was happening every day. And every day there was a show here. If there wasn't a show, we made a show. We were out here with our little boom boxes back then with cassette tapes. You know what it was? Like I said, we were here all the time. There was only a handful of bands that were here all the time. And those are all the classic bands that you think about. If you think about them, like Agnostic Front, Cause for Alarm, Antidote, Urban Waste, Murphy's Law, The Psychos. This was the scene. This was the core. And when I'm talking about the scene, I'm talking about 30 people. You know, I'm talking about probably when I go in there again, haven't been in there since the end of A7. I'm probably going to be blown away by the size of everything. The scene was 30 people.
We weren't wanted around here, even though this was my father's neighborhood and I come from this neighborhood. Now you got people here. Who knows these people? You know, like whatever.
We were squatting these areas, man. You know, like You know, and this is exactly it. This is what it looked like, all these abandoned buildings. We were out here living in either one of these buildings or in the van, depending, you know, on the situation. It's funny what it is now, you know, and if anybody was brand new to walk here today, I'd be like, what is this guy talking about? This is nice, it's beautiful. It's a big change, and I think they used us for this whole gentrification. We were the first ones here. We had to deal with the gangs that were here. Nobody would ever walk into Avenue B, C, or D. Nobody would ever go that way. But we did. This ain't no neighbor. You know what a neighborhood defines? People know each other. You know your neighbors. You know, you let your kids go upstairs, go downstairs, run wild on the street. They go out. These people don't know each other. You know what I mean? It was just the way it was. This ain't no neighborhood. I don't know what this is. I don't even know. I can't define it.
There goes the neighborhood.
The A7 Club was always to us the true home of New York hardcore. This is where, like I was saying, where it was active all the time. We didn't even need a band to be playing to have a scene here. We just all knew to come to this corner, to this venue, this club, and just hang out all night, either here or inside if there was a band playing. Shows didn't even start till 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Wow, what is going on down there? We never knew that existed, of course. There's a DJ booth here. Jimmy would be DJing. Was it here or was it over there? It was right there over there.
Wow,
the DJ booth. Was it here or over here where Jimmy would DJ?
Oh,
it was over there.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
confused.
right, it's over there.
The ball was over here. Whoa, Todd. Just looking at pictures.
How are you? How you doing?
See you, man.
Wow.
Just looking at all these old pictures here. A couple of views.
What's this?
Okay, basically here at the A7 Club as well as the CBGs, but we're talking about A7 right now. Stigma would supply the house kit and house backline for almost every band. And particularly what came up to mind with me was that every time we would have a show, of course we couldn't afford any drum skins or anything like that, and we don't even know what a drum skin was, to be honest with you. Who gives a shit?
Who knows that change?
We know that it didn't sound good. It would break doing somebody's show, so we had to get something. So we would run right around the corner here to Sal's Pizzeria and get 2 boxes, pizza boxes, cut them out, tape them together, and use that as drum skins forever. You remember that? Forever. That was it.
The kick drum.
And nobody gave a fuck. Yeah. There was even people playing in bands in my I'm guilty here. My own band, the Cycles, for instance. Billy Cycle never even used his kick drum.
Yeah.
Never used it.
Never used his foot. Never used his foot.
And it didn't matter because it's a cardboard box anyway. The only person I knew how to play anything was this guy.
12 years old.
We kept it together. We're a bunch of we don't know what we were doing. We're just jumping around and making noise, but this guy knew what he was doing.
For me, at 12, 13 years old, to join Agnostic Front at the time, Agnostic Front was the biggest band. Because the Bad Brains were broken up, and Agnostic Front was the biggest band. So when I got asked to join, it was like I got asked to join fucking Led Zeppelin. I was probably this tall back then.
Yeah, you were about 80 pounds.
And I would get in on the dance floor, and I would go off for bands. I would go off. Everybody had their own style. Like, Vinny had his style.
I remember right here. I remember.
He did the circle. Vinny
and this was mine.
That's it. That's the stigma march right there.
Push people, push this guy. Turn it up. Come on, let's get into it.
You know what else you can do?
Chicken fights.
We'll go start each corner, come at each other.
Usually the girls will get on our shoulders.
United Blood. United Blood. We're all united, right? Talk about we're all the same. They talk about we're all the same. Show me what we're all the same. Why don't you get the fuck away from me?
CBGB's is gone. Whatever. We're in A7.
This is before CBGB, so this is amazing. One second. In this room, so many bands with it. Everyone say rabies. 1, 2, 3. Rabies! Someone's gonna get their head kicked in tonight. Here we go. No one fucks with us. We're a family. Here we go. Wake it up.
And me, Roger, and Frenchie, we used to walk all the way down this fence, all the way to the corner, arm in arm, and we used to sing, "I was a punk, but punk is dead. Now I'm a fucking skinhead." Remember, we used to sing it all the way up and down. You do that today, they'll put you in jail.
It's amazing. It's the best city I've been to. It's cool, you know, last night we got to go to New York Hardcore Tattoo, got to see Rabies Boots. That was fucking really cool, man. I got to grow up listening to Agnostic Front, Warzone, and Judge. Like, it's just so goddamn cool to see the streets that these guys walked on. And another thing too is the age difference. At a show like this, you know, you got kids that are 15 up to, you know, grown men, 50, 55 years old, and it's cool to see. It's unifying.
It's like one big family reunion. Where you know everybody and everything. Yeah. And you know what is happening and what's around you usually. Yeah. But sometimes if you just come into it like it's a new thing to you, you're probably gonna get smashed.
You know what that is?
It's a New York Hardcore logo.
You know what that is?
Yeah, the New York Hardcore logo.
You have no idea where this symbol came from.
Nah, man. Do you know who created that?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
Do you know where that came from? Originally, no.
How did the New York hardcore symbol come about? It probably even goes back to being a Yankees fan. Sorry, Boston guys. It is what it is. But, you know, it was always that NY, like the New York symbol, just the NY letters, New York, NY for New York were already pretty iconic. And I was, originally, I don't even think I intended it to be an X as much as an acronym. Like, I thought, like, okay, NY, and then I did HC, and I was coming up with letters, like, okay, here we go, NYHC, and like in some type of font, and then, you know, the New York hardcore going across. So I broke the word hardcore apart into two words, hard and core. And at first, I guess I was just trying to come up with some type of acronym, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was just going to come up with the letters NY, HC, and maybe like list the letters down vertically and horizontally, put like the EW and the ORK. Then I started playing around with it with the X, because the X is just a very iconic symbol and an element, and not just so much from a straight edge standpoint and from the fact that it was put on people's hands in DC if they were underage at like the 930 Club when we went there, but we were also Generation X, and you could see this is probably like the very first incarnation. All right, well, what if I took an X and then did it in the quadrants of the X? And then it became, okay, which way does it make sense? So when I first started out, I was actually doing HCNY, but you could see I actually wrote over it and did NYHC here because it was important to me. I think we read left to right, so it was important that it made sense in that regards, that we would go like, all right, you would go cross first and then up and down. A lot of thought went into it, so it's not like I just had an epiphany. The scene was really important to me, the camaraderie of the scene. It was like an extended family, especially because it was so small. I've always been a bit of a team player, you know, so I wanted something that kind of was a unifier. And again, here you could see this is like really the final incarnation. Like, all right, we have NYHC, but here again, I was still kind of, unsure of which way I wanted it. So yeah, and that's how I ended up on that.
So this is basically what you arrived at.
This is what I arrived at. This is the original piece of paper that the New York Hardcore logo came up on. It became like Support New York Hardcore. So it was all about supporting the bands, coming out to shows and showing your support. 3 words that I would associate with the New York Hardcore symbol are unity, camaraderie, and history.
3 words that I associate with the New York Hardcore symbol are truth, real, and heartfelt.
Community, culture, and home.
Hardcore, music, and the story of
CBGBs, stigma, and fun.
Positive, agnostic front, my life.
It is global, and again, it's been used by so many different a version of the symbol. Whether it's just even for a hardcore band, you know, it became just, hey, plug in your city letters, you know, NJHC or whatever, and I'm fine with it. It feels good in one regards. It's funny because for the longest time, people didn't even believe me when I'm like, hey, I'm the guy that made this, you know. So there's the sense of ownership, like, hey, I'm the guy that created that. It's an ego booster. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. I'm glad. I got to say, I'm happy. I'd rather see that happen than have been so protective of it that I smothered it and nothing ever happened with it.
What's up? My name is Davey. I'm from the Bronx. This is my 9th Black and Blue Bowl. Always a good time.
If it wasn't for New York Hardcore, I don't know where I would be in my life. All I know is that it molded who I am as a person today.
It's more kind of family than a movement. I see it that way. I'm Laurent, I'm from Paris, France, and I'm here for the Black and Blue. Basically, I'm on a punk scene till '77.
Here we are rolling down the highway in southern Florida. This is chapter 13, The Lost Archive. We're going to Sanibel Island and we're going to talk to Randall Underwood, who was a photographer back in the day, the first wave of New York Hardcore, who took a lot of pictures and collected a lot of stuff, and his stuff's basically been in the trunk for all these years. We love making films like this. It's like an archaeological dig. We're going to his house and we're digging into the trunk and we're gonna see what he has. The Lost Archive. Let your people show. Let your people show. Let your people
I saved everything. I don't know why, but that era was so important to me. I collected all the flyers. I took pictures. I documented. I got stickers. I just kept it all, threw it all in a box, and I've just been holding on to that box for the right time.
And hopefully we're getting close to that right time.
Yeah, brother. I'm just trying to share it now.
You're like a pain in the ass. You're making me work, dude.
So is this where the stuff has lived for the past few years? Is this the trunk that's traveled with you everywhere?
This one, that one, and just some kind of bullshit that I've been carrying around. And then I had all.
It's like Treasure Island out here.
Bro, I had all the records in boxes too. You know. Don't open, light sensitive. You see how I follow the rules. Yeah. See? If I didn't open it, what would happen? Oh, this one's good. This one's really good.
I wasn't taking pictures of bands. I was kind of taking pictures of my friends and was trying to get what they were really like hanging out. You know, so I was never really a band photographer. I was just trying to take lifestyle pictures. People hanging out in front of a 7 Club, in front of CBGB's, in front of Apartment X. There was more stuff going on in front of Apartment X than you can imagine.
I think I know why Randy did this was just out of pure love. None of us were thinking like, you know, where is this going to be in 10 years or 15 years? If I was thinking that way, I would have done a lot more collecting myself. I think he really loved the scene. He loved the music. He really loved the music.
This is my nostalgia room. This is where I keep all the stuff, a lot of my photos. I kept all the flyers to most of the shows I went to. They're all the original ones, yeah. I mean, some really great shows here. Minor Threat and the Mob and Urban Waste at CB's. Fucking A, huh? What about Crucial Truth, the Mob, and the Circle Jerks? This one always cracks me the fuck up. Beastie Boys, only $1. Look at this, The Young and the Useless. Free at the Mud Club. Can't beat that price. The A7 shirt with that Tony t-shirt did. This is funny because it's got all the bands on the front. AF, Urban Waste, Blood Clot, Doughboys, The Abused, Cavity Creeps, which I was a part of. Antidote, The Mob, Crucial Truth, Kraut.
He probably is not going to want to let me over there because he knows I'm going to be ripping T-shirts off the wall and stuff like that and pictures. And I think he is, like a lot of collectors, has a little bit of that hoarder mentality. He's not going to let go of anything that easily. I'm surprised he let you scan stuff. You know, I'm sure he was right over your back as you're taking you're putting stuff on a screen and he's getting all nervous. I'm sure.
I started taking photography classes when I was in high school. My cousin gave me a camera. I started bringing the camera to A7 Club and taking pictures. And then once the earlier bands were starting to put records out, you know, they were asking me, hey, can you do some pictures for us, some publicity photos, some record stuff? And rest is history. You know, I kind of documented an era.
You know, funny enough, I remember this show. This was, you know, a typical Sunday in the life of a bunch of hardcore kids. We were all just hanging around CBGB's. There was some sort of matinee going on. I don't remember exactly which bands were playing, and there were probably 20 kids there, maybe less. And we were like, yeah, we'll get up on stage and play.
Today, everybody has an iPhone. You know, you could just keep taking pictures, taking pictures, taking pictures. Me, I had 36 shots in a roll of film, and everyone had to count. So I tried to make everyone count. I had to be a little more careful with my photography. I had to basically frame every shot the way I wanted it. You had to put a little more TLC into them. This is Mark Ryan. He was in a band called Death Before Dishonor. That is Rob Kabula. They're sitting in front of Apartment X.
There was a few people that were coming around like with the pictures. If you had like somebody like, you know, whatever, somebody from the Daily News come up, you know, you'd be like, what the fuck is this person taking a picture of us for? But just to really like to walk up to a crowd of, you know, kids, that's what we basically were, sitting on the sidewalk, smoking a joint, or somebody's like almost passed out, or just flipping them the bird and to take a picture. That was Randy.
A lot of fun. Billy Krines, this was a kid from Nutley. He was pretty much at every show. He lost his virginity in a car right below 2+2 Club. I'll never forget that. And me and Barrymore, you know, we guarded him, because who the hell knows? He might have got the car jacked.
Like I said to you earlier, I said, I didn't even remember Randy taking pictures. Right. And I think in some ways that's kind of cool, because that really why he's captured so many great moments. But now that you're talking, I do remember Randall having that camera around. But I don't know, I just didn't really pay attention to it. But, obviously now that we look at all the work that he did, and Randy was, he was, a big, that scene, it was really important to him.
Maybe we should commandeer his stuff. We'll bring a whole bunch of people down there and just raid his garage and say, this is property of the New York hardcore scene now. You do not own this.
Anything you'd like to add as far as this stuff goes, or what it meant to you, or where it's heading, or anything like that?
Nah, just enjoy the pictures. Every picture tells a story.
Graffiti and what became of it in the world is because of New York City.
Every night, we used to go home, me and my friends, we'd go to the A7 Club downtown, or the Rat Cage, and hang out, and we'd take the train back to Astoria, and we'd get in the back train, and we would kick out every single window. But I mean, everyone. We'd hang on the bus, kick every single window out, right? Rip down every single of the advertisements that they used to have, put it in the middle of the train, and then at Hoyt Avenue, which is where me and my friends lived, Astoria Boulevard, we'd light it on fire, and we'd run out and watch the train drive by with no windows in the back on fire. All the time, almost every night. And I think about that now and I say, that would be the headline of the New York Post. Like, that would be a full-blown terrorist attack on a train. And so it was a bit of a lawless sort of world then.
Nobody gave a fuck about the subway system. Nobody gave a damn. Lunatics went into the subway system.
Well, you get on a subway train back then and you couldn't even see one clear spot on the walls. Every inch of the train's inside was covered with either spray paint or magic markers.
I found a whole other world, man. It was trains, it was art. I was like, holy shit. Me and my brother were like, what the fuck? We're little kids and we're on a train. Back in the days, the 70s and early 80s, New York was crazy.
New York was kind of like in a fiscal crisis and whatnot. And the fact that they really didn't care so much about the subway system, we thought that we were making it look better.
Graffiti was my first drug. It was like a high, you know what I mean? Like I went into a place, bombed a train, and anyone could come out there and fucking attack me, okay? I get hit with a bat, I get stabbed up, or I could fight someone and evict their shit, or a cop could lock me up, or a cop could beat me up, then lock me up, you know what I mean? I know Dr. Revolt from the hardcore scene, because he used to come down to Coney Island High, you know what I mean? All these dudes know about punk rock hardcore, the Beastie Boys, everyone, you know what I mean? Nats, Gavin from Absolution, he's an old graffiti writer. He used to write Nats 1, Risk.
Graffiti was like the world's sickest game with the most contestants ever.
Sasha Jenkins, who was the biggest hip-hop journalist in the world, got me, him and Chaka from Burn, Absolution, brought me to my first show in 1987. And they were hardcore kids, you know what I mean? From Woodside Projects and Astoria, you know what I mean? Hardcore kids.
Like-minded kids are going to be interested in like-minded things. So the extremities of hardcore, the extremities of hip-hop, those two things go hand in hand with the extremities of what graffiti has to offer.
At that time in New York, like, graffiti was really kind of hitting getting some real currency in street culture, where writers were starting to become known. People were starting to respect the art, and it had hit its initial kind of wave or tier where, now it was like there was some glory to graffiti.
Graffiti transcended everything. The common denominator was the can of spray paint or the marker. It didn't matter if you were black, white, Chinese, Jewish, polka dot, green, striped, anything. If you knew the underground language of graffiti, I hung out in neighborhoods where if I didn't know that, I wouldn't be hanging out in that neighborhood safely, let's say.
All of this shit is language. It's not just bands. It's like the iconography of Antidote or Urban Waste or Agnostic Front is very particular and has a very specific feel that is an extension of the band and what they transmit and what they're about. And same thing with writing. You're dealing with signatures, you know. Graffiti started with signatures and it evolved. And so punk, hardcore, hip hop, it's all very direct forms of communication.
You know, the graffiti appealed to a lot of people. So you could like metal and be into graffiti. You could like hip hop and be into graffiti. You could like hardcore and be into graffiti, and then also use the graffiti as the artwork for your band. Murphy's Law used it. Uncle Al's cartoons, although he wasn't a graffiti writer, those cartoons are kind of graffiti style. And then, you know, the album that they did, Back with a Bong, it has a graffiti logo on it.
I think that somebody in the Midwest at that same time might have seen a flyer and be like, oh, those are interesting curved letters. But it wouldn't have had the same currency as it did when you're in New York. You're taking the train, you're seeing that, and you're saying, wow, okay, like, so that cool piece I'm seeing on the train, right? And those cool tags I'm seeing that are just, you know, all over the subways, that is part of this hardcore thing too. Maybe, you know, maybe I can come, right? Maybe I'm, you know, black, white, Puerto Rican, whatever, but maybe I don't really like rock or something. Or maybe I don't skate, or maybe I'm just, maybe I like, you know, I'm a street kind of dude or whatever. This is, okay, if they're down with Graph, they're down with me kind of thing.
Anybody could do it. You know, you didn't have to look or be a certain way or listen to a certain kind of music, but it meant the same thing. Get your message across. To me, it's part of the whole New York hardcore movement. You know, the hardcore movement, East Coast, is like the graffiti tags and everything. I love it. You know, like my first EP in Crown Thorns is Train Your Blues.
Definitely. You know, graffiti and hardcore, you know, it had like 30% graffiti, you know, or a little more than that. But definitely, you know, hardcore is a melting pot of music and art and other, you know, graffiti and violence and other things too, you know.
We never thought about it, you know. It was just kind of like, it was always our thing. Like, you know, when we first started with the band, you know, we were like, oh, all right, yo, the band's here. All right, let's cop a tag. And we'd cop a Madball tag. It just came secondhand. It's the way it was in our DNA. That's how we were made. That was never thought about, you know, from the tags on the record. We didn't sit around and say, we're gonna do graffiti kind of so much. We're like, no, we do grab. And it's not even a matter that just film. Somebody's gonna bomb or put a sticker up. To this day, we're grown-ass men. We can't take our people anywhere without something getting bombed.
There was no Facebook or any social media back then, so this is how we got known. I think we spray painted our name up on the 59th Street Bridge one time. We had a big Antidote tag up there, and a lot of people used to see it, so it was like free advertising.
You know, do it yourself. We need a logo. I draw. I do graffiti. Okay, so it all lends itself to each other because it was out of necessity.
I think the part that came across for Burn was less overtly in like the Burn logo or any of that stuff, and more that we were out bombing Burn and being in Videograph at that time when like not everybody wrote graffiti.
Well, basically, if we go from 86 to 89, all the flyers are graffiti. All the straight edge bands in Connecticut, all Smorgasbord, all the graffiti stuff, man, up front, you know, and they're the white kids from Connecticut.
People always consider graffiti to be like black urban art, which to a degree it is, but some of your best, most artistic writers were Caucasian.
Definitely not just about hip-hop culture, even though obviously when you think about graffiti, you immediately go, oh, hip-hop culture, whatever, and it goes hand in hand, but yeah, hardcore was in the mix with that, for sure.
Queens always had a connection to hardcore, but you had Astoria Queens, who had his classic spot and his own element to it. But then we went to the more gritty part of Queens. That's where we came into play. DMS was a big-time graffiti crew, man. And we started as a graffiti crew. We had different ethnic backgrounds. We had Albanians, we had Muslims, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Black.
Chinese, you know, Cantonese and Mandarin Chinese. We had Filipino, you know, we had mulattoes, black and white. You know, we had it all. No one could ever take that away from us. And that's still pretty much our, our makeup these days. You know what I mean? It's still very multi-ethnic, multicultural. It's something that I'm extremely proud of, man.
We basically started, getting bigger and bigger. And then once doing the music, I started doing music after I did graffiti. So I started bombing on the road.
What's consistent at the venues, there's a backstage area and there's a bathroom. And there are just certain natural extensions of the venue that in between sound check or you're there early, guys are catching tags. If you rode over someone, that was a sign of disrespect. So people, there's a code to this whole world. Say what you want about graffiti writers, there's a level of dedication that goes into it. And when someone disrupts that dedication, you're upset and you're gonna wanna do something, and that leads to quote unquote beef.
Beef was awesome. Beef was amazing because it could happen, it could roll out in so many different ways.
At one point, yeah, it was one thing after another, revolving around graffiti.
It was so new, it was so fresh, it was so unpredictable, you couldn't control it, and you can pull up into your own show and be smiling and get a cold beer, high five, and all of a sudden you didn't realize that someone's gonna hit you over the head with a stick.
You paint something or you write something, someone goes over you and crosses you out. That's a direct message. Graffiti writing is it's language, it's a direct message. I write my name here, wait a minute, you just crossed me out, you're attacking me. My signature is an extension of who I am. It's the purest representation outside of a photograph of who I am and what I'm about. You're smearing that, you're going over that.
Ghost one day, MQ over Ghost, Ghost over MQ, and then MQ back over Ghost, and Ghost back over MQ, and then MQ over Ghost, and JA over MQ, and then JA over MQ.
It's all good, It's part of the equation, All types of things happen while you're doing something. And, definitely, stick to what makes you happy, And I love graffiti, so don't fuck with that. But, good times are part of life. And if you can enjoy what you have, do it.
Back in the day when people used to have rotary phones, it wasn't any big thing it was a big thing, but it wasn't uncommon to have someone calling your house and harassing your family. And, it was like, and it was really funny. And a lot of times it would go toe to toe. It would happen a couple times. And there was for toe to toe beefs, honestly, I can't say anyone has outdone Ezek, because Ezek would just, toe to toe. He's like, let's meet here, let's do this.
My thing was, I'm a graffiti writer, but my thing, part of my crew, every crew had a graffiti writer, every crew had a guy who brawled. I did both. At that time in my life, I loved it. I loved it. I loved being there. There'd be dudes that be like, yo, that guy's crazy. Yo, that guy's like a ninja. Yo, that guy fucked up 3 guys. I'd be like, all right, tell him come here. The guy'd be like 10 years older than me. I'll fucking serve him in less than 5 minutes and it'll be over. I made my name like that.
I'd be going to school. I'd be going to high school with dudes that did graffiti. And the name would pop up. And if my boy's name would pop up, I would have to defend that just on principle. If people were whispering and MQ, I'd be like, what's up with MQ? That's my boy. Here I am, a little 17-year-old, little wiry kid being like, what's up? DMS, yeah, that's my crew, what? And it's like, you had to step up. That was your family. That's my extended family. That's my extended. That's my fam.
It all started as friendships. We were kids. We write graffiti. We were in the streets, but the music brought us together and gave us a form to go tell the world what's going on in our world.
I'm proud to be a part of something that started before me, that I got involved in, that I'm still involved in, and that I still love just as much as when I first started doing it. There's not that many things that we do as adults that we love to do that we started doing as kids.
New York City is the city I want to stay in. It's like, I have to go home now Monday, and I'm just like, fucking hell.
New York City is the city that I want to stay into.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, bro.
Okay, thank you, bro.
Well, I come from Berlin, Germany, and it's very interesting that something like the Black and Blue Ball survived over so many years with that little input, basically. That means local bands, a lot of small bands who normally couldn't make a big festival and get the people from all over the world flying in here. That was back in the days too. New York was always interesting, and Black and Blue
keeps the whole thing from back in the days happening.
Hardcore musically called for, you know, that element of metal, you know, that I'm talking about, that had the power, because the soul behind hardcore was so demanding of something ferocious, you know what I mean? So it had to gel.
I think that the crossover bands prevented the hardcore scene from further stagnation.
It was an interesting time. Like people almost had to figure out who they were all over again. And some people left it behind, and some people again went back into this like purer hardcore mode. And then there's people who just embraced the crossover. And it's like, it's music. There's great bands, there's shit bands, there's people being honest about this, there's people who are faking it, and I'm gonna like what I like, and that's it.
Any sort of innovation it's just important for the scene, because you're bringing in new influences, and it keeps the music fresh and exciting. I think that purist music is great, but when it's done year after year after year, it's more of homage and a form of nostalgia or a tribute to the good old days, than doing something that's really innovative and fresh and exciting and inspiring.
Kill 'Em All was the type of album where I know every motherfucker said to themselves, oh, I wish I could fucking write a song and do vocals over that riff, you know what I mean, or do something with that. And I think a lot of people, you know, tried to make that happen, and that's why metal and hardcore came together.
You know, I got to give credit to all the metalheads who first started coming around, because it wasn't really the most welcome place for them back then. You know, you came to a hardcore show with long hair and a bunch of metal bands on your jacket or whatever, you know, you might have some issues. Props to those kids who did make the transition, you know, definitely. You know, and then bands that really made a big difference from the metal world, who started infiltrating, if you will, and actually started making a lot of friends on the scene, were, you know, bands like Carnivore, Nuclear Assault.
Well, basically the first person who turned me on to New York hardcore was Scott Ian, because he got me into Agnostic Front, simultaneously getting me into stuff like Discharge and aggressive, you know, English hardcore and everything. I found it very appealing because at that time, thrash metal was starting to get big, and I was really getting into all that, and we were all searching for something more intense. You know, we loved Slayer and stuff like that, but when I found out that there was this other parallel scene of intense music right under my nose at CBGB's, I had to go check it out.
I just think that the whole energy of New York hardcore, right? The attitude of New York hardcore is what people were attracted to. It wasn't necessarily the bands as much as it was the energy of the fans.
As far as New York goes, and I always thought Agnostic Front was going to be big. I thought Leeway was going to be really big. But the Cro-Mags to me were that just super special band who had this sound that, without trying to be a metal band, could appeal to metal kids, could appeal to kids who like edgy music without having to cater to anyone and just be what they are.
For Biohazard, Cro-Mags were a huge influence. It's obvious. And, you know, Harley and John, to Paris directed our fucking videos, to Mackie in Doug too, like such an interesting combination of personalities that it seemed to, looking back now, it makes sense that they're not together anymore. When they came out with Age of Core was such a fucking massive record in the hardcore scene, and they toured with Motorhead, they played with so many different metal bands. It was kind of like, at the time we didn't realize the business side of things, but we kind of did the same thing. You know, our first tour was Creator, and next U.S. tour was Exploited. Another tour was Sick of It All. Another tour was Slayer. And it's like we had our feet in all different things. But the Cro-Mags, when they came out with Best Wishes, they took the metal side of it to a new level, and that was a fucking major crossover record, and it's such a big fucking impact on the scene.
You know, you keep talking about Best Wishes, but as a crossover album, but I really think more than anything, Age of Quarrel was the first real crossover album because, I mean, it had that, I mean, World Peace. That's more like a Motorhead type of riff than an AF riff or a Negative Approach riff or whatever. That's way more in that pocket. You have riffs in Malfunction. That definitely has a little bit more Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath in it than most of you probably realized before. I mean, even you take the beginning of We Gotta Know. There ain't no hardcore bands that ever don't. What that is it's just a fucking a fusion type of a thing. Big open chords with all kinds of like it's just a fucking like a Lenny White type of beginning. So that's what set the Cro-Mags apart. We took influences from other music sources and made it our own.
I can hear the anger, I can hear the aggression, you know, coupled with like such artistic fucking, you know, musicianship, and it really fucking hit me for what it was. It was, to me, it sounded like the streets of New York that I had never seen or had never been a part of. But it felt like the streets of New York to me. And you know, for me, just a fucking innocent guy, just hearing that and getting that impression was really, really huge and powerful.
The first Cause for Alarm 7-inch, I had tried to be hardcore. I had tried to play loud and fast and angry. To throw chord progressions together, that seemed different to me. That seemed unused. That just seemed angry. That just seemed different. And that's what I did. And went for that fast and furious and different, unconventional style. But by the time Agnostic Front, Cause for Alarm came along, that had passed. I didn't need to do that again. That's not what I wanted to do. It was the first, even though I was trying to make that first 7-inch angry, it was natural. I was doing what was natural. What was natural when we did Cause for Alarm was a little bit different. It was more metal. It was more rock influenced.
Whatever you think of Cause for Alarm as an album, it was by far their biggest album, and it reached the most people. But you know, there's people who were the big Victim in Pain, you know, supporters like myself, who heard Cause for Alarm and was like, what the fuck is this? And I broke their record. I heard Cause for Alarm. I was waiting for it. I broke it, you know, because I'm like, why would they do this? Like, what are they inspired by here, right?
For Cause for Alarm, I said, wow, this is ballsy. I mean, you know, putting me on this record. I mean, really not, I mean, it wasn't well known. I was a metal drummer, and you're looking to create this sound, like, let's roll with it. You know, that was the thing about them, and that was the whole hardcore thing. They weren't very regimented and formatted in their approach to doing things. It was, you know, it was like by the seat of your pants. But that was the hardcore attitude. It was like, you know, and to actually be able to harness some of that talent and put it on a record was a miracle in itself.
I think expectations was set higher for us because, you know, once we started getting recognized around 85, 86, I think most bands realized, yo, we need to practice more. We need to do this. The game is going up 2 more steps.
You know, the Crumbsuckers in a very similar way, where they were around with another singer, with Dave, and they were great. And then Dave leaves the band, and Chris Notaro comes in as the vocalist, and now they have 2 guitar players, and they have this sound, and they didn't sound like everybody else. And I don't even know how conscious the Crumbsuckers were of their sound. You know what I mean? I don't think they were thinking about, like, let's combine metal and hardcore. I don't think they thought about it for a second. They just were what they were. You know, then their first album comes out and you're like, holy shit.
The arrangements that they were doing, that's what, the first thing that jumped out at me was the fact that they were not doing your you know, 2-minute arrangements. You know, verse, chorus, fuck you, we're
What I loved about the Crumbsuckers is not only they had great songs, but you know they had that hardcore mentality, they had that metal mentality. They had the musicianship to play both types of genres convincingly, and they were from New York. And you know, I remember first seeing them at CBGB's, going, "Oh my God, these guys are fucking great! This is the future of music."
We were just doing something a bit different from what the other bands were doing, but we were part of the scene. You know, we were the suburban guys, you know, the guys, the Long Island crew that used to go and hang out and eventually play shows in New York City. But we always considered ourselves to be a hardcore band from day one.
The We Gotta Know video was one of the biggest things to happen in that crossover. Because up until that video, the world outside of like A7 and CBGBs and whatever other little rat hole fucking clubs spread out across America, no one outside of a hardcore show had ever seen a mosh pit. Nobody had ever seen stage diving or crowd surfing or a band with no shirts on, covered in tattoos and shaved heads, like nobody had ever seen no shit like that. So when that video actually made it on the Headbangers Ball and started getting some rotation, that's when you started having all these metalheads going, what the fuck is this shit?
Born out of that in like the late 80s were bands that were young enough guys that they weren't really around for the stuff that came before, and they were influenced by bands, SOD as much as Overkill, you know, who have nothing to do with hardcore, but were just kind of a semi-aggressive metal band, but were influenced by Nuclear Assault, were influenced by Cause for Alarm era Agnostic Front.
Candiria was influenced by the earlier crossover bands like Agnostic Front, Cro-Mags, Leeway, and we being also influenced by bands like Yes and King Crimson, and being interested in odd time signatures and taking it a little bit further. I really feel like the band is more of like a second generation crossover band. Yeah, I mean, we were influenced by that, but we also wanted to take it a step further, the same way the crossover bands wanted to take hardcore a step further. So we're just like, we're taking it as far as we can. And I think that's a musician's job, in my opinion, is to take it further.
So you have bands, Biohazard, you had Marauder, various other bands around New York, but I think Biohazard is probably the best example.
They propelled off of that crossover thing that was happening, and they took it to the next level, involving themselves with a metal rap thing that was like, that was ballsy. Talk about, combining genres and stuff like that.
They opened the doors for all of these other bands as a crossover band.
The crossover tag came after the fact. Like usually things as they happen, nobody knows what's happening at the time. It's just happening. It's part of the reality. And after the fact, it was kind of like, oh, you guys kind of mix this. I remember hearing the first time with like rapcore, that we were like, what? Rapcore? Isn't that Limp Bizkit? That's what they do. So you know, we always just kept our fucking heads down and forged forward, did what we did, and no apologies, no regrets.
Their sound and their look and their attitude was just something that was very appealing and just really took the best elements of what the whole crossover thing had become, and they became a band and a force, really, because they took their thing around the world. And with it, they took hardcore around the world and they took metal around the world. And they represented both really well. So when they had to talk about hardcore bands in an interview, they could talk about it from an educated point of view. When they were on MTV talking about fitting in with metal bands, they just did, you know? They came from the same place as a band like Overkill, but they sure as hell weren't that kind of band.
When I say, hey, you know, I was a New York hardcore kid that joined these heavy metal guys to do a record, and this became this crossover thing, that's crossover. Crossover to me was the application of the attitude, the very real, very go fuck yourself. This is, you know, just who I am, and that's it. And the New York hardcore movement was always about just very real, organic, you know, kind of like take it or leave it New York attitude. It became everything that New York was, a very take it or leave it cold attitude.
The crossover thing, there were imposters and phonies and fucking, you know, people who exploited it, and then there's people who did it with passion and did it from the heart and created something that people still dig. And a lot of these bands still play, and there's bands still influenced by those bands, and you hear big, huge bands come out of the woodwork, and we would never have even been a band if it wasn't for that band, and some of those are crossover bands.
It just blows me away that Cause for Alarm has a place in hardcore history that, and not just hardcore history, in metal history. I mean, it gets brought up and acknowledged, and when I was asked to do the Cause for Alarm reunion for Black and Blue, I was blown away that I'd be offered an opportunity to get on stage with guys that I consider, you know, brothers, and, you know, have an opportunity to have my family come and see us play. That was really very important to me.
Before, I love this pre-hardcore, PH, NYPH, we still had the residuals of the earlier punk generation. So there was this great sense of openness and experimentation, and come one, come all, no matter how weird and fucked up you are, there's room for everybody. Male, female, trans, black, white, Chinese, we don't care. The weirder the better. So we got the benefit of that, I think. And that was the one awesome thing we took from the earlier punk generation, and that's what I loved about it. It felt so free.
Women, I think, initially, in the beginning stages of the scene, I really did not feel such a separation between men and women. And the bands that I first saw, there were girls in it, like Killer Instinct or No Thanks. I looked at them and I said, wow, these are girls. They're cool women, and they're doing this. And there was no formula.
We're blood.
It was pretty much the best time of my life. It was really, I remember when they were getting the band together, and it was Minot, Laurie, and Nancy Mohawk. And we were outside Great Gildersleeves, and they came up to me. We were sitting on the sidewalk, and they came up and they said, yo, you want to be the singer in our band? And we're getting this all-girls thing. And I just kept looking at them going, me? And they're like, yeah, we like you. You're tough out in the pit, you know? And I'm like, so I was just honored and thrilled. It was great.
women were involved, girls were involved, they were part of the scene. It was all inclusive. It wasn't like, oh, women are over there, you know, men are over here. It was beautiful.
And we had inspiration from some really, really great bands that were in town, like the Bad Brains. You got these black guys playing shit like you've never heard in your life, and that makes you feel like, I can do this. You know, I mean, to be like them, well, you better fucking practice. You're going to be woodshedding for a while. But it was inspiring.
PMS asked me to join the band, and it was wonderful. I love being in an all-girl band. It was a camaraderie, again, like I said, with like-minded females. We had such a great time. We were friends. Not only were we bandmates, but we hung out together. I guess our senses of humor were similar. Our political views were similar.
An all-girls hardcore band was unique. Absolutely. I mean, because you had girls in bands, but to be all girls, that was, yeah.
Back in the day, a lot of the girls were even more scarier and more badass and hardcore than the dudes. And you fuck with the girls, they will jump on you, and not just one. There will be like a gaggle, and they will, you know, beat the shit out of you. You know, so no, certain girls were not to be fucked with.
It's the same as any social group. You know, there's bullies, there's nice people, there's all kinds. You know, as we had the whole range of people. I wouldn't say just girls were bullies, guys. There were guy bullies too.
Some things have changed within me. Maybe I should explain. All through when playing by the rules of someone else's game. It's time to trust my instincts. It's time to take.
There's a lot of days where I would tell you to your face, fuck this, I hate this, this is crazy, I don't know why I do this to myself, or why we put ourselves through this chaos sometimes. But when you play a show and someone knows, it could just be one person, or it could be 20 people, you know, someone knows the words to your songs and is jumping on stage and wants to be a part of it, or you look down at that floor where you see people wearing your t-shirts, shouting your words, just losing their minds to your music, that's the payoff right there.
Yeah, and nobody believes you're a hardcore band. Like when we first started and we were looking to hook up with promoters and other bands, people were like, oh, you're in a hardcore band? I'm like, yeah, I'm in a fucking hardcore band. Like, yes. And we got put on a lot of shows actually where we were way out of our element. Either we'd clear the room or people would lose their fucking minds.
I'm gonna say violence definitely changed the scene. It was kind of almost like in a school, you have a new class that comes in, and each class is different, you know? And so I would say, like, you had like the 76 to 80, then you had like the 80 to 85, then you had the 85 to 89. You had these little groups, and the later 80s group was a little more violent and, you know, against each other. You know, I mean, for us, it wasn't against each other, it was against the world.
It became really violent and stupid. People would start wearing, you know, spikes, and who the fuck wants to get killed, you know, by some moron who has to prove that his dick is bigger than you know, somebody else's.
You know, hardcore back in the day until now, I think definitely the sound has changed. There's more of a brotherhood in hardcore now than a womanhood or any kind of like group thing that pertains women.
I think I enjoy hardcore just as much as any guy out there, if not more so, because I've always felt this music was always helped you to rise above like any kind of discord that you're feeling through life, any kind of tragedy, anything that ever made you feel like that you were put down in this world. It helped you to overcome all of that.
It's a lot larger than it used to be, so I think it's a little bit harder for the girls. You know, the numbers of guys grew, and I think that the numbers of girls really didn't grow as much.
When I think of the women that I hang out with in the scene, we're equal to men. Equal. I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't give a shit how big you are, how strong you are. I'm just as strong as you, probably. And I'm even to the men in this scene. I don't see myself being anywhere at the bottom.
Let's be honest here. If we girls in the hardcore scene were attracted to what we call a female energy, you know, we'd be down at the opera. We'd be doing ballet and or or doing disco, or going the Blondie route with this kick-ass backing band and have this incredibly powerful, positive female force in front of the band. I think there's an intrinsic maleness to hardcore.
My advice to any female coming into the scene, trying to be in a band of any kind, hardcore, metal, punk, would be to have skin as thick as armor. Why? Because people are going to judge you harder than anybody else. People are going to criticize you. People are going to have good things to say, and people are going to have bad things to say. And if you can't push it off, it's going to affect you negatively.
It's something that girls should just remember, that it's a family. So, and they're not going to get hurt. Like, they're not going to get hurt. Like, don't stop yourself from enjoying it or going because you think you're going to get hurt. You're not going to get hurt. It's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. I got you. Don't worry. I can handle all these guys. Like, I'll protect you. Like, it's fine. And that's because I've done it for so many years. You just got to be open-minded and come hang out and see if you like it or not. Like, I don't know if that's, like, something inspirational for women to hear, but it's inviting, and that really helps.
I feel as a privilege just to be a female in it, you know? Just if there's not as many of us, at least I feel privileged to be in it.
I'm just grateful that it's still going, you know? I mean, hardcore is still alive, kicking, thanks to, you know, Black and Blue Productions, all that stuff. They're keeping it alive and it's relevant, you know? I'm just so happy that it's still going on.
If you're a girl today looking at the hardcore scene and going, well, that's a lot of guys, and you just want to pick up an instrument and play, just do it. Because that's what changes things. It changes the music scene, it changes the world, it changes you as a person. Do what's in your heart. Don't listen to critics. Don't scrutinize yourself in the mirror. Don't agonize over what other people are doing and compare yourself and this and that and the other. Do what is in your heart and your soul. Follow it, and that will set you free. And that's what makes innovators. That's what makes scene game changers, and we need more of that.
To me, I mean, you have to give a certain credit to West Coast bands as well. Black Flag was never really my thing, not to take anything away from them. But to me, hardcore and New York are synonymous. There's no hardcore without New York, and in my lifetime, there's no New York without hardcore.
New York hardcore is life, man. Support hardcore, support your local community, support your scene. And if you're in a young band, if you're starting out, make the music that you want to make. Stop worrying about how this band sounds, how that band sounds, like that. We tried that, it didn't work out for us. You stay true to yourself, and you be honest with yourself. Doesn't matter what you write, you be real about it. You put your feelings, put your emotions to it. Because once you put your feelings out there, your family, the New York hardcore community, it's gonna give it right back to you. That's how we do.
By the time that we got to New York, there was this whole tone that like hardcore's over, crossover was getting big. You know, Agnostic Front Cause for Alarm record came out. You know, Anthrax started hanging out at CBGB. So there was this whole kind of thing of like metal was coming in, and hardcore wasn't cool anymore.
I was interested in hardcore. I wanted to hear Minor Threat. I wanted to hear Negative Approach. I didn't want to hear, you know, the metal version of that.
We were falling into it too, you know. Death Before Dishonor was like starting to write metal riffs. We even did like, you know, Iron Maiden's Run to the Hills as a cover. We had a second guitar player who was purely from a metal background, never heard of like a punk rock fucking band ever, you know, and it was ridiculous, you know. Like we played and he's like playing with his teeth and shit, and he's got like this electronic like ray gun that makes a noise. He's putting it up against his pickups and shit. Fucking ridiculous, man. And I remember playing drums and shit, and I wish this would just be over now. Like I never wanted to get off stage more than I did that day. Once that gig was over, I cut out. I just went back home and I just stopped going to shows. I really felt that I betrayed the scene that, you know, got me through my young years and shit, and I disrespected it, and I hated myself for it. And I stayed away from music, I stayed away from New York, stayed away from bands totally.
I loved the real simple hardcore. That was my favorite thing. I loved noisy, loud, really brutal. So when everything started going crossover, Gnostic and the Crumbsuckers and stuff like that, I just said, you know what? The world needs someone just to like represent hardcore. Like Negative Approach broke up, Minor Threat broke up, all these bands broke up, Urban Waste broke up, The Abused broke up. I was like, you know what? Let's just sing a message of straight edge, which is like it will contribute to the community, whether people like it or not. It's a good thing, and let's just sing that and write just good classic hardcore songs. We wanted to keep hardcore in its very genuine, purest form.
When I first saw Youth of Today, my friend had the 7-inch of Youth Today at this kind of moment, and it just looked super powerful. Like it had this, black and white image with black, white, and red, which is so powerful, and it's all handmade looking. The songs were all slogans, and just the music was absolutely primitive sounding, like AF was to me, or Negative Approach was. It was like hitting every single musical cue that I wanted, and every sort of message that, off my back, get off my back, your expectations are too much, like, get the fuck off my back. Like that really spoke to me more than talking about, acid rain or the kind of subjects that metal bands were talking about. Like I didn't give a shit about that.
For me, it was a game changer. First, aesthetically, you saw the 7-inch and that grainy black and white, almost like a TV out of focus, and like, Ray's face, and it just was strong. And that was like such a punk aesthetic, that simple, I did this myself in like fucking school, like with a copy machine.
Here was a band saying, like, basically preaching universal tolerance and, definitely putting aside things that are destructive to oneself or to society, and definitely taking strong stances against racism and sexism and peer pressure to drink and do drugs and all that stuff.
It was Mark Ryan, the singer for Death Before Dishonor. He called me up one day and he's like, let's go check out this band. And I was like, I don't go to shows anymore, man, you know that and shit. And he's like, no, man, these guys play hardcore the way we first fell in love with it, And so he talks me into it, and we go out, and it's Youth of Today, right? And they play. And it is, it's like fucking, hardcore the way when I first, it was almost like seeing that first Agnostic Front show again. It was like pure music, no bullshit.
Maybe I missed Minor Threat, but maybe this is my Minor Threat.
We may have alienated some of the older people and some of the more kind of crossover people, but all these new kids, they loved it too because they loved hardcore. And it's funny because, that whole resurgence of hardcore started, hey, you got bands like Sick of It All, Gorilla Biscuits, Warzone. The New York scene really kind of grew out of that. People wanted hardcore, they wanted to listen to hardcore, they wanted to play hardcore.
I don't give a shit, not a street on my town. That hurts, not my fucking fire.
A little while later, Ray and Purcell wound up moving to New York, and that's where I meet them. And their drummer and bass player had quit, and so they asked me to try out for drums. I was playing in Death Before, which now became Super Touch, and I said, yeah, I'll try out, and I wound up getting the gig and going on tour with them. I was like playing this, hardcore, which was pure again, and it definitely, it breathed life into what I thought I had, helped kill.
Truthfully, those very beginning days for me were really special because there was something about just being naive and just trying, and like everything we wanted was just like right there. Like the dreams that we reached for seemed to be at the tips of our hands.
That 1987 touring Break Down the Walls, it felt very special. It felt like magic. The good things about it far outweighed anything that was maybe spinning the wrong way.
New York City was not a positive place whatsoever. You go into CBGB's, there's people like literally, people wouldn't even be shooting up in the bathroom. They'd be shooting up in like the stairwell of going into the bathroom. I never saw somebody shooting heroin. I never saw anybody sniffing glue before. And so, I mean, just that kind of drug element, it brought a lot of violence. It just brought a lot of like it was a very kind of dark scene.
In New York, straight edge wasn't really like, I mean, you were there. It wasn't going to make you the fucking cool kid on the block to be straight edge in New York, you know what I'm saying?
I think people were just sick of it, and they said, hey, look, check it out. Here's something new, and something like a little bit brighter. And it's also very, very powerful.
This was like a lifestyle choice, you know, so that was really fucking cool. It was basically put the booze and the drugs down, be aware, seize the day, live your life kind of thing. I mean, that's powerful stuff.
And the scene that grew up around us was amazing.
I was just determined that that's what I was. I was just fixed, and that's my identity. I don't do drugs. I'm not interested in it. I've got better things to do with my life.
And so there was a backlash. But I think it was kind of too late and it had taken hold, and I think the thing that really turned it out was Ray's ability to organize and to bring people in, which I think is the best illustrated in the 2 compilations that Revelation Records put out and the Warzone record.
That was a game changer because it was like, holy shit, we can all do this now. And they were like, fuck yeah, because they were on the ground floor. They had capo, there was an inside man. And it wasn't like later on when record companies came around and everybody was like, I don't know about that guy, I don't know about this company, fuck that. You know, everybody had to get kind of like, I don't know, in effect, I don't know, profile, that's not cool. This was our guy doing it, so it was cool, and it was very DIY.
Revelation Records definitely even felt then, even when Jordan and Ray were creating that label, it absolutely felt like a way to, you know, put a logo on this thing and get the message out all over the world.
As just as important Revelation was, I think Don Fury's Demo Studios was equally important because we had this guy in Little Italy who understood and created the sound of New York hardcore with United Blood and Victim in Pain, Gorilla Biscuit Records, Sick of It All Records. He did so much. When you got the New York hardcore excitement recorded at Don Fury's, put out on Revelation, it was just a perfect, you know, little mix, and everybody wanted that mix.
When I was in Youth of Today, we would catch so much shit. Like, we couldn't be part of this fucking scene because, you know, there's no room for fucking do-gooders like you guys. Like, all Ray was trying to do was, like, put out, like, all these positive ideas, how we can fucking, you know, we can live together, work together, and we can, you know, we can all fucking prosper. We can all have the same goal, you know, and like we don't have to do the live fast, die young thing anymore. It leads to nowhere, you know, and we caught hell for it. And it was perplexing.
So we had a tour booked around the country, and it was not, I mean, Black Flag had done it, but it wasn't like Black Flag created this whole awesome system. It was teenagers on a rotary phone making deals with, you know, at Legion halls. You never knew, you know, whether the person was legit and if the show would actually happen and what the pay would be. You know, there would be like 1 or 2 things on the tour that were like, we're gonna get $500, dude, in LA, holy shit. That would anchor your whole tour. But we were basically shoplifting across the country. Like the van broke down and, you know, working in junkyards to pay for it and staying in people's houses always, never at a hotel. We were just losing weight and we weren't drinking. We weren't even eating meat. You know, we were dying.
You know, like the whole idea of Judge was born in the back of the fucking Youth of Today van as it was broke down in Florida, you know? I'm like sleeping in the van in the middle of a junkyard, you know, to watch the equipment. I'm just reliving all these moments. I came up with all these words, which became the New York Crew song, you know? And I just came up with this whole framework of this band that wasn't gonna let people do this to us anymore. We weren't going to be doormats. Because we're being cool and nice doesn't give you the right to walk on us.
Mike was just sort of like, you know what? We're going to say it even louder. And we're going to say it with a little bit of like, if you don't like it, screw you, like that. And that was sort of like the attitude with Judge.
You know, the scene needed what was coming next. And instead of the, let me explain myself, I want to be friends with everybody straight edge, it was the go fuck yourself straight edge, and I'm not apologizing. You guys can suck it. This is what it is, and this is, you know, it was hardline.
But it's funny, he ended up fronting the band that is maybe now considered the most straight edge band. There was Project X, which was kind of this side project, which was almost a caricature, deliberately so. But Judge they're it. They're like the most straight edge band. And wow, when I first heard it, I was like, this is unbelievable. This is powerful, powerful stuff. Wow, Mike. Oh.
There was something happening and people wanted to be a part of it. And we went on that 87 tour around the country, and every night that we played, you could just feel it, like, people's minds just getting blown, like, I'm gonna start a band, I'm gonna write a fanzine, I'm not gonna drink anymore, I'm changing my wardrobe. You could just feel it. You could hear those thoughts popping off in people's minds.
This one is my first single. It's called Can't Close My Eyes.
And then all of a sudden it became, I'm straight edge, I'm straight edge, I'm straight edge. You know, the fishnet arm, whatever, t-shirts and stuff like that. We were just like more jockey looking than punk looking.
That's the fashion side of it, and also the idea of the proselytizing idea of straight edge and of youth of today, which was basically join the movement. So if you're going to join the movement, how do you identify that? And the t-shirts that came out with slogans on the t-shirts and all this kind of stuff made it powerful, you know, joining the crew.
We wanted to kind of differentiate ourselves. You know, every kind of revolution has like a uniform to it. So we just kind of wanted to separate ourselves from that kind of older thing, which was more nihilistic and it was moving in a different direction that we wanted. We want to say, hey, we're kind of into something different. We're going to dress different. We're going to look different.
It made it a lot more inviting for people than it would be to say, like, Agnostic Front is playing, hey, this looks like a great show. Jesus Christ is getting chainsawed in half. This is going to be cool. I'm from this like little town. I'm not afraid to go to that. You know what I mean? Which, you know, something's lost, to be honest. But that's what was happening.
So it was incredible when you think about it. And in that era, Warzone, Youth Today, Underdog, Judge, Bold, Sick of It All, Crackdown. You know, I could just think of like 30 bands that were active in this scene at a time. And it was just like an incredible little bubble in history that I'm not even sure can be recreated in that city now because it's just a different city.
And then it just became the culture. We create almost like Youth of Today and those bands then created a culture of straight edge, a fashion of straight edge, a look of straight edge, a haircuts, the appropriate haircuts of straight edge.
That particular subculture did give rise to a lot of elitism and a lot of cliquiness and all these factions all over the country of very exclusionary kids, and I hated that. I always hated it, you know, from the get-go.
And the straight edge kids, in a sad way, they just isolated themselves from everything else, and they became a bubble within a scene. So they weren't interested in going to bands, other bands that weren't straight edge. And sort of, in one sense, they cheated themselves out of a lot of good music, but in another sense, they didn't want to hear like really dark stuff, negative stuff, violent stuff. They wanted just positive, uplifting music.
From my perspective, it became a victim of its own success, which I think by 88, like all these Revelation records had come out, so the look was totally established, and you'd go to all these towns, and all the bands kind of started to sound based on the same, you know, startup kit, and everyone had the same clothes on, and it became very safe and boring.
And then it got fucking shitty because it became like brands, you know, where it was like Nike, Champion. I think eventually even like Tommy Hilfiger shit started kind of coming into things. And that was very rap to me too, where it was like you identified your scene by whatever fucking stupid label you wore on your shirt.
It did kill itself, to me. because people started getting really arrogant about the straight edge thing. It became, I like me and I hate you because you're not. And to me, that isn't where I wanted to go with my life. So I felt like, okay, we're all straight edge, we're all this, we're all that. Big deal. Big deal. And it just became sort of like buffoonery, you know what I mean? And I wasn't, I felt like I had higher callings in my life. And I quit the band at its biggest success. I mean, We're Not This Alone was the biggest success we ever had. And I just realized, like, there is no level of material success that will actually give me what I want. And that's sort of like why I quit. It wasn't because I didn't like the music. I love the music.
For me, there was great symbolism in the Tompkins Square riots in '88 because that felt like a big crescendo and an end to a lot of stuff. Again, nothing really died, but it was a real turning point where, you know, that last bastion of subculture, the Lower East Side was really becoming gentrified. The writing was on the wall, and, you know, the scene was dissipating and kind of moving in all directions. And look, and all of us guys who were in that scene, or the vast majority of us, we did go and explore other genres. I certainly did. I went and did, you know, Walter did his band, and I did mine, and other guys, you know, did theirs. And even Ray and Purcell, who, you know, they went and did the Ray and Purcell record, which was not at all a hardcore record. And you know, and Ray went and did Shelter. And I think a lot of people sort of became disillusioned for a time, but it never, you know, that flame still definitely burned. No one ever declared it dead. And it certainly isn't. The straight edge thing is alive and well in various incarnations all over the world.
It gave me the confidence that, you know what? I'm not going to stop here that I'm 22. I'm going to go on. I'm going to keep on doing my own thing, whether the mainstream recognizes it or not. It's important to me, and I understand that it's important. And a lot of people from that hardcore scene did the same thing. And a lot of like really interesting people went on artistically and professionally and did some really cool things that weren't necessarily part of the mainstream culture, but really kind of made waves in their own way, just doing their own thing. It's so cool. A lot of people had that same experience.
And go. Try to put them like, yeah, good. Close. Okay. A little close. Good. Jojo. Jojo. There you go. Jojo. 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 We're right here, babe. Jojo.
Yeah, this is a unique movement, a unique way of life to be hardcore. You know, you could be anything else, you could listen to anything else, but do you live that way? We actually live this way.
If you think about what's going on with the whole term of gentrification of Manhattan, New York City, Brooklyn, Williamsburg, hipster attack, whatever, it's definitely hard to shine because they're suffocating a lot of the real art and creativity in New York City. Thank God that we were able to put this on because it definitely is like very, what's the word, indigenous to the neighborhood. There are a lot of authentic things still happening in downtown, but it's definitely one of the staples that people know about. And it's like a, you know, like a King Kong on the Empire State Building kind of, he's still there hanging on, you know. He may be getting shot at and they're trying to kill him, but we're still there.
My name's Craig Satari. Everybody calls me Craig Ahead. I'm extremely grateful for my hardcore life. I really feel like I'm blessed. Every day I wake up and I'm so happy. And I know that sounds like I'm reading off a cue card, but I'm not.
He had only two passions in his life at that time. He loved the music, he loved to play, and he loved boxing.
Years ago, 20 years ago, everybody was in a van, everybody was in a Ryder U-Haul truck, everybody was sleeping on people's floors after shows and stuff like that. So you had to have a real hardcore mentality. And I think boxing and combat sports in general obviously require that intensity and that hardcore, fucking crazy attitude. You gotta have that. You gotta have that. So I think that's the tie-in.
I got to do what I wanted to do for a living for my entire life. And the only reason I got to do it is because it's what I did. And it just sort of happened. I have a lot of luck on my side. I have good karma. I feel like I'm not a rich man, but I'm a happy man. I own this beautiful farm here. I mean, I'm pretty happy. I get to blast on stage, go all over the world, have total excitement, come back here and chill and just look at the animals and breathe the fresh air. Agnostic Front, in my opinion, was like the first New York hardcore band to really branch out and do big tours and become like a band that really reached far beyond the East Coast and like the tri-state area. I remember them going on tour and playing at the Olympic Auditorium in LA and seeing photos from it and seeing a video clip, and I was like really, I couldn't believe it, like wow, like, you know, New York hardcore, like my bands, the bands that I'm like, you know, with, they're playing these big shows out in LA, and it was like really a big deal, like waving the flag for New York. It was really a big, thrilling thing. When I joined Agnostic Front, I had some experience up to that point. I had toured all over America and done shows, but I hadn't actually lived in a car for years at a time.
The kind of music was very confusing, yes, but it was mostly scary, scary, scary. He was very, very young, and he was already going on the road with older people, older guys, and doing I don't know what.
Joining AF, basically I got my boots, you know what I mean? Vinny always likes to say that I brought the sneaker into Agnostic Front, but I certainly was issued a pair of boots when I joined them, and it was like boot camp, you know? I went in a boy and I came out a man. You know, in some ways it really helped me, and in other ways it really disturbed me, but there's that half-broken, twisted gene. It's a commonality that draws everyone to the hardcore scene, it seems like, you know? At least in the early days it did.
I think dysfunction had a lot to do with them and with what shaped a lot of early hardcore, and I think it's a very important element that the music kind of needs to constantly draw from to remain kind of relevant.
There was a lot of adventure. It was tremendous good times and adventure, and I really learned that no matter what position I'm in, no matter what's going on around me, I could keep my head and I could function, and I could really handle anything. They were definitely the band that really branched out nationwide and did a lot of stuff. You know, later on, Sick of It All became the band that took hardcore to every corner of the globe, you know, every small spot in the world, you know, the Fiji Islands, you don't think anyone's playing there, Sick of It All plays there, you know what I mean? But like all these bands, we all piggybacked off each other and we took the whole thing worldwide.
We had done our first European tour in '92, and you know, AF and like Gorilla Biscuits had been there before us, but it was a really good tour, but it was very hard. And Richie, our original bass player, he was like, you know, if that's the life, I think that's what it really turned Richie off, that we worked so damn hard and got, you know, not much pay, which, you know, we weren't in this for the money. And around that time, after that, like around '93, AF was gonna break up and go like on a hiatus. And we were like, damn, Richie's leaving and AF's breaking up. We just thought of Craig, because he's always been there from being, not just growing up, but when we went to do our first album, Craig came up with us and we recorded the album in 3 days, and he even wrote lines of lyrics in a couple of songs on the first album. So it was just natural. We called him up, we said, do you want to be in Sick of It All? He goes, yeah. And he told us, he goes, I remember going on a European tour and I had your 2 first albums on cassette, and I would just listen to them in the van, and Vinny would be like, traitor, you're a traitor.
I think they've always stood their ground as being like the flag bearers of that, you know, New York hardcore. And, you know, they were kind of like a second wave band of that whole thing, you know, if I can say that. Our band, Biohazard, wasn't really a part of that whole thing. You know, we were in Brooklyn. It was like kind of like a separate thing, you know. I mean, Sick of It All and us kind of, I don't know if there was a rivalry there. I don't know if they felt a rivalry. I didn't feel a rivalry with them. I was a fan. But I remember when we started playing shows with them, they were very hardcore. They were all about just New York hardcore and all that.
I mean, we were just psyched when he joined the band. One of my favorite things is that first tour we did. He came right off the AF tour. We went to our first show, was I believe the first one was Pittsburgh. And it's an old show, club that's closed down now. And Biohazard had just played and killed it. And Craig looks at me and Pete and all and goes, we gotta fucking bring it tonight. And the first song, Craig runs and jumps off the drum monitor while playing Clobbering Time into the crowd, and that just set it off. That's our whole career started right there again.
We totally understand each other. And it goes beyond just the band that we've been in for the last, 20 odd years. It goes beyond that to when we were in Rest in Pieces together. It goes to when we were in Straight Ahead together. We've been musicians together in 3 different bands going back so long that I even know what it's like to be a frontman standing next to Craig. He understands where I come from musically, and I understand where he comes from musically.
What was unique about Sick of It All is we understood our place in music. We didn't think when a little popularity came, oh, we're gonna be this big band and let's change like this. Whatever trends came didn't really matter. We just kind of did our thing. There was never, the fantasy never went along with it. It just was what it was.
Yeah, he's the journeyman. He's played with every legendary New York hardcore band, and he's done it at a level that's better than anybody else because he's the best at what he does. He has the most amazing bass sound. He's like a modern day like Daryl Jennifer or something. He's that monster on the bass.
Who the hell knew that now it would still be going and going strong as a worldwide phenomenon, meaning hardcore music? I had no idea. I mean, all I wanted to do was play CBs when I was a kid, but I'm really grateful for the way things turned out because there was nothing I wanted to be growing up as a kid more than just be a guy who played music. I always wanted to be a musician, but I didn't want all the fantasy, and I didn't feel comfortable with all the self-glorification that went with it. Hardcore lasting this long, it's almost like makes me smile thinking that the good guy kind of persevered and came out of it. The good guy meaning music like hardcore that isn't really pretentious.
Is hardcore dead?
No way. No fucking way, bro.
Fuck no. No way.
No way.
No.
No.
No, it's not dead.
Never.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's not dead at all. Most definitely not.
Never die.
Nah, not even close, man.
I hate that.
No, like maybe you died, or the love for it, or the love that you used to have for it died for some reason.
Hardcore will never die. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's got too good of a name. Like, hardcore is just so powerful. Like, you listen to all your different kinds of music, and then there's, you think you're onto the cool thing, and then you see some sketchy dude by the bathroom going like, hey, kid, I got what you really want.
No. Hardcore, when people say stuff like, this is dead, it's dead to them or to mainstream media.
It may ebb and flow and go into pockets where it's, kind of very subculture and very underground, and then it'll have another boom someday like it did in the 90s where it blew up, but it's never gonna go away. You can't kill it.
Yeah, that shit, hardcore lives.
Hell no.
Hardcore won't die until I die. So I'm gonna get in as much as possible.
It's just right there. But it continues and it does its thing and people fall off, and they come back in, but no, it's not.
Hardcore, that little scene down on Avenue A that we had, has influenced mainstream culture more than fucking just about anything, and people don't even realize it.
We were the kindling, and then everybody's gonna throw a log on the fire.
As long as there's that spark, this multiply, don't die.
It still keeps growing, it's still gonna keep going. It'll be different people, different scene, different faces, but it's not dead.
To quote John Belushi, no fucking way.
Hardcore brings a lot of people together, and I think that's what it's all about, after the music. It brings together your good friends, good vibes, and a good show.
Yeah, it's that common denominator.
Yeah, and that's something that, no one will ever want to let go of.
Hardcore is alive and well, and kicking around in everybody's mind. It's no longer just in a club. It's a ideology, it's a way of life, and it's an approach.
Maybe what you knew hardcore to be at one point, it isn't that way anymore. But so what? You know, again, we're supposed to be mad at the kids that came after us and how they've embraced it or what it sounds like. You know, it sounds different now, it looks a little different now, whatever. But if the band has that spirit and that passion and it comes from the heart and they're doing it right and they're also bringing something to the table, how could hardcore ever be dead?
Fuck no, it's not dead. Why would we be here? We're about to go play A7 right over there. Shit ain't dead. Get out of your mind.
There's no way hardcore is dead. There's no way, because we're doing this interview right now. You know what I mean? And I was born in 1994, and hardcore's not dead at all. And I'm still young, and I got a lot of years left. And there's handfuls and handfuls of bands I can name right now that would prove otherwise. Anyone that says that is fucked up, because it's not dead. There's no way. I won't let it die.
People that say, oh, the scene's dead and this and that. Yeah, you went away and you went and had your 2.3 fucking family members and your cars and whatever, and you gave up and turned your back on it, but not everybody did. There's still dudes like Roger and Jimmy and all these fucking guys, you, me, and a portion of people sick of it all, 30-year anniversary.
I love being part of this family. I love you, I love all my friends, and I love that we're all still here and happy. And that, you know, you're making a movie about it. Is it dead? You're making a fucking movie about it. It's not dead. People are writing books about it. There's symposiums on it in fucking conventions, you know. People are making a living off of it. It's not dead. If you're making a living off of something, it's not dead. Far from it. So get with it. Join it. Join us. Join us.
I think it's culture and language, you know what I mean? And I think as long as people are fluent in the language and are interested in speaking the language, they're gonna show up to see Gorilla Biscuits, they're gonna show up to see Antidote, they're gonna show up to see Absolution or Burn or the Wilding Incident. You know, I think there's an energy inside of it. It might be dead to a certain extent as a grown man, like I'm not, you know, going to Vegetarian's Paradise with some straight edge kids from Connecticut in my, you know, in my old age, but are there kids who are doing that right now? Probably, and I hope they are. I hope they're, you know, using the platform of hardcore to express themselves.
For me, hardcore is in my soul, and New York hardcore lives forever. And for me, it's not whether or not you're a part of it or living vicariously through it. The fact is, I was there, I seen it, and it's eternal.
We rose